Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast as we get well and truly into season 2026 here. I have another amazing guest to introduce you to today, and she is Ms. Amy Steele from NexaMotion Group. Welcome to the podcast, Amy.
Thank
It is.
you. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you along for the ride with me today. You said you've been binge listening to the podcast over the last couple of weeks, so you know how I roll. But how do you roll? How did you get into this wonderful world of B2B e-commerce distribution, e-commerce, being responsible for that? First of all, we don't have enough women in this industry, I don't think, although that is changing very fast. It was interesting when
I'm trying to help it.
when I was in Scottsdale last year for B2B e-commerce world, it was normally when I go to B2B specific e-com events, it's maybe 10, 15% women that are there. I think it was more like 40, if I just finger in the air, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but just looking around at the crowd, I would say there was like 40% women there. And that's a big change in a very short period of time. So this idea or this concept that B2B e-com or B2B sales in general is male, pale, and stale, that's changing as I see it anyway, as an outsider looking in. It seems like that's changing pretty fast.
I'm hoping. We need it too. We need to shake it up a little
bit,
you know?
I love the mix. I love the talent. I love the ability that's being brought in. I love the empathy that is oftentimes brought in when you have women brought into an industry that has been oftentimes male dominated for decades. And so how did you get to be in this industry?
So I'm in the automotive sector for e-commerce, and that automotive is pretty much my blood. Like my dad was a mechanic, crew chief. I've worked at different automotive companies, and I, at one point in time, 2019, found myself in transition for jobs, and I landed at a little startup called Parts Tech. And there I spent 5 years building out that little e-commerce platform and getting it to a point where it sold for quite a decent chunk of money last year. So I fell into it because I saw a job to get me back in auto that just happened to be e-commerce that got me back into like sales support and the whole customer experience side of e-commerce.
Wow, that is so cool and so exciting. And now you're at NexaMotion, and they are a large distributor of automotive aftermarket and online ordering solutions for vehicle aftermarket. How did you know somebody at Nexa, or was this a place you always wanted to work, or did you know about them, or how did you land at Nexa?
So when I left Parts Tech, my previous boss, who was the co-founder of Parts Tech, he left a couple months after me. He actually landed at NexaMotion Group, and he's now the president of Transend, the e-commerce platform. So as soon as he got started, he called me up and was like, "Hey, I know what you're doing right now, but do you want to come back over here and do this all over again? We got to do it." So that's what got me back in the door. Working with him, he was the kind of manager that it's good to work for. So definitely came to another company to work for him again, do it all over.
I love that. And it's so true. I've heard the saying said many times that you don't work for a company, you work for a boss, usually, obviously, unless you're doing your own thing. And the reality is that if we have a great working experience with somebody often and we get an opportunity to do it again, then it becomes a little bit of a no-brainer. Hey, it's something we've achieved before together, so we're pretty confident we can repeat this playbook. And when you were first brought on to help build out NexaMotion's capabilities in e-com, digital customer experience, but you're a VP, so you're pretty highly ranked within the business as a senior executive in the business and VP of customer experience. What did you find when you first got there? Did you find a company that was advanced down that path, or did you find a company that was recognized the importance of this, but just didn't know how to execute on it, but wanted to execute on it, and they were really just looking for an executional team to make it happen? Or was this a slow, steady scenario where you had to be an evangelist first, then an executional part of the team?
So I believe that NMG's CEO, Neil, I'm pretty sure he brought on Eric because he knew that the e-commerce platform needed some vision to move forward. So when I came on, there wasn't actually a support team. There were a couple people that handled just the e-commerce sales. So the company had some B2C that was through Amazon, Walmart, eBay. So there was a couple of team members that handled those orders that I ended up within a couple months of coming into the company, recognized that they could easily transition into support, took them on, been building them onto a support side of the house. We transitioned into a ticketing system, brought on chat that has AI in it. Yep. So then this past year, like now that we got support going, it's building the experience for the customers. So customer onboarding, we're working on customer success next. One of the first things I did was I created a user group. We needed to start getting more voice of customer to find out where we were doing good, where we were doing bad, and making sure we had that open communication, because anyone that has been doing ecom knows you win by doing what the customer needs. Like you got to serve a purpose for them, especially our platform's free. You don't pay
Yeah.
for it. It's you use it because you want to order your parts from one of the companies that we service parts for. So it's just pretty much changing the mentality and the behavior of our customers, which is the most difficult part because automotive is a late adopter to technology, I think I would say.
It's been my
Yeah.
experience that's true, and I think historically one of the reasons for that is the fitment issue. It's just fitment is aces and pies, and we've got different
Hmm.
systems around the world that help with fitment data, and we've got Tech Alliance who has a monopoly on certain data, so we have to have really strategic partnerships out there for fitment data. Some manufacturers are really willing to share fitment data. Some of them are not. Some of them
Hmm.
want you to subscribe to their fitment data feed so that you have to actually pay for that and you have to build that into your pricing model so that you remain competitive in the market, but yet you can help your buyers to find the stuff that they need to find. Let's say they're working in fleet management or they're working at a mechanic shop or something like that, so that they can find the right product for the right vehicle for the right scenario. And then oftentimes there is OEM components and then there's aftermarket components that are equivalents. Some are cheaper, some are more expensive, some have OEM level specs, some have slightly lower specs, but you might pay half the price for those products. And so understanding how and where a product fits into the right environment is such a big undertaking in automotive aftermarket, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah. And especially thinking of Transtar, which is the distribution company that's kind of like the bread and butter for NMG, that's transmission based. It is light years behind the aftermarket and the OEM. Like you then have remanufactured and salvage
Yes.
units. There's no catalog data on that. There's no
Yes.
pictures. There's nothing. So like we are trying to get that the transmission side of the parts to like the ACEs and PI standards that the Auto Care Association has for all aftermarket parts to really make it so that we can service the right parts to the customers. Like we have customers that literally are pen and paper and
Yes.
phone. They don't have a computer. They don't even have a cell phone. It's all in their head. That's all. That's how they run their business.
And did you find, and what I often find when I first go into a manufacturer or distributor, and they might even have a mandate from the board that says, we are going to do e commerce and we're going to do it. We're going to make this investment. We need to become more efficient. Our customers are expecting a higher level of service than ever before. And we want to be wherever our customers are. Sometimes that's going to be through a sales rep. Sometimes that's going to be through customer
Mhm.
service. Sometimes that is going to be through EDI. Sometimes that's going to be through punch outs. They might recognize that they need to do something, but oftentimes there is this internal resistance based on momentum that is really hard to overcome. And the two biggest areas where I see that resistance coming from, at least initially, is customer service and sales reps. They're going, okay, you're the guy that's going to bring in the robots. You're the guy that's going to bring in the systems and the technology that's here to replace me. You're the guy that's going to take away my commission, or you're the guy that's
Mhm.
going to make us go from 10 customer service reps down to 2 customer service reps. So, am I going to lose my job if we do a really good job at this digital thing? Do you find that is something that it takes some conversation, it takes some understanding that, hey, no, actually, we're not here to replace you. We're here to give you superpowers and take away the painful parts of your day that you hate doing anyway, that doesn't add any value for
Mhm.
you or the customer. We're here to take that stuff away and allow you to focus on the high value activities that are high value to us and high value to the customer. Is that where the conversation has to start in your experience?
Yes, and we're still having that conversation. So we still have some areas where we may have internal reps that feel like they're losing sales if they send their customers to the e-commerce platform. They feel like we may not actually have the right results that show. So there may be fears that they have that are accurate that we have to take account for and start taking action on. So we're trying every day to convince our internal team as well as our customers that our platform is here to help, not to hinder. That's all we want it to do. And any feedback that they give us to help us get it to the point where it can help them and save them time and make their job and their lives easier is exactly where we want to get it to be.
I think also one of the things I've seen that can work well, and oftentimes reps will go, we want a whole custom suite of functionality in the back end versus what the front end customer gets to see. And sometimes that's warranted, and sometimes it helps keep them out of ERP. If they can use the commerce platform to find products, if they can use the commerce platform to create a quote, if they can use the commerce platform to close that loop and get a sale from a customer, etc., then sometimes they and run CRM type of operations out of commerce, or at least in integration with commerce. If they find that helpful and usable for them, that helps them do their job faster, better, easier, then oftentimes that could be a way to overcome that hurdle.
Yep.
But the other thing also is, and I try to explain this, is look, we want you to actually log in as the customer. We want you to be doing things through the front end as the customer, because if you find things that are painful during the process of doing that, then what's going to happen
Mhm.
is that allows us to improve the customer experience of our own platform, and it allows us to experience maybe some of those pain points even before they become customer facing, become a problem with the customer. And so I think it helps us build a culture of empathy inside our businesses that I think we
Mhm.
have to have in order to do right by the customer. What's your take?
Exactly. So we, with the way that our platform is, like our sales rep have the ability to impersonate a customer so that they can go in through the front end just like they're the customer. And that is my biggest push is do that. I need you to see what the customer's seeing. I need you to search what they're searching for. When they want to complain to you on the phone, I want you to know what they're talking about. If you don't know how the platform works, how are you going to understand if they're a user of it? Like you're going to put yourself at a disservice. And like you said, if there's an issue, they can bring it to us before the customer even sees it in some cases if they're using the platform on a day to day. So that is a constant point of conversation. Okay, we're giving you this tool. Please use it. Even on my support team, like I want you logging in. We partner with different companies that we actually have like API connections to, and they'll use this as a punch out, different management systems. And my biggest stressor to them is let us see what your customers are seeing of our system so we can make sure if there's an issue, we can help fix it. Like the burden doesn't have to be on you if we can also see what's going on. It is imperative to know what the customer is experiencing.
And so you guys today already deliver self-serve e-commerce, you already deliver punch out, and you already
Mhm.
deliver EDI for certain customers as well. So you've got that full 360-degree spectrum of the types of customers that come into the business through digital
Mhm.
channels. It might be one of those three digital channels. Are you also seeing an emergence like what I'm seeing, which is even if a customer transacts through EDI, or even if they transact through punch out of their e-procurement system or something like that, they oftentimes want and expect a whole suite of digital services beyond the transaction available in a portalized type of experience. So they want to be able to log in and check inventory. They want to be able to log in and check their price. They want to be able to log in and check the MOQ of an item or the buying increment of an item. They maybe want to log a digital quote request if they're buying more of something than they would typically buy in a specific order, or if it's for a replenishment order for a part shop, a retail part shop, or something like that. So are you seeing a rapidly escalating expectation in the market by those automated transaction users where they go, we want a whole bunch more digital services that go beyond the buy now or the add to cart button?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest changes we just launched, I believe it was November, December we launched it, was a update to our invoice page. So making it so that it's easier for them to track their orders, print their invoices, all of that, like everything's searchable, like the whole nine yards. So one of the basic functionalities of our system is something that we've had to spend a lot of time getting it up and running for the self-service part of it because they don't want to have to reach out. They want all of those different features right at their fingertips, even if they're not ordering through that channel, because a lot of our
Yeah.
customers don't, but they want to be able to log in to print out the invoices, match everything up when it gets delivered. That's how they do all of their checks and balances on their side.
And
Mhm.
isn't that crazy that as of 2026, we are still in a scenario where something that has been common in retail e-commerce for say 10, 15 years, where I can log in and track my order. I'm going to get an automated status update email with a tracking number and an estimated delivery date and everything else. That is still it's still the B2B world oftentimes is so far behind, not because they don't see it as important, but because we now have to integrate so many different systems into our
Mhm.
system to pull that data down. And oftentimes, bulk carriers, for example, in the B2B world, like LTL carriers, they don't necessarily have APIs. They don't necessarily have
Yep.
systems that you can easily connect to, get status updates, get estimated,
Mhm.
like this is a technical barrier. It is oftentimes not a desire barrier. It is a technical barrier and it is a challenge that is quite unique to the B2B world. Whereas all the traditional retail carriers, the FedExes, even the Amazons of the world, the USPSs of the world, they all have APIs that we can connect to. And we can get near real time, accurate data as it flows through the fulfillment network. But in B2B, that's
Mhm.
oftentimes not the case. And so it becomes an added barrier to giving even the most rudimentary level of service in the B2B world that our customers have come to expect from their B2C and D2C experiences.
Yep, we have instances where we have to manually input tracking numbers because there is no connection to that LTL. I have had to learn more about logistics and shipping in the past year than I ever thought I was going to have to know in my life, just to try to identify some of the issues that our customers experience on our e-commerce side of the house. That I'm like, okay, how can we solve this? How can we help out with this? Which, like you said, should be rudimentary, but then when you start digging into it, wait a minute, okay, there's a lot of updates needed throughout the entire industry for us to get where we need to be. The Amazon and Walmarts of the world are giving people false hope of what they should be expecting from what we can actually deliver.
Totally. And there's also this expectation in the B2B world, I think, that the for example, we may have much more complexity in the cart in the checkout for digitally than we see in the retail world. We have a scenario where items may need to be back ordered. We have items where split shipments may need to occur. We may have
Yep.
orders where it needs to both be fulfilled from 2 or 3 different DCs. So that impacts the freight price that we charge, where a default DC that's closest to our customer, we may ship freight free. But then if we have to pull inventory from an alternate DC, then maybe there's a charge for that shipment. Then we have to give the customer the opportunity. Okay, cool. Do you want us to wait and hold the entire order until the back ordered item is back in stock? Or do you want us to ship everything we have now and then ship the back ordered
Mhm.
item once it comes back into stock? And we just don't typically have that level of fulfillment complexity, just broadly speaking, underneath that. I'll just stick it under the umbrella of fulfillment complexity or order management complexity. We just don't see that in the retail world. And we don't see it for a number of reasons. One is all orders are prepaid in the retail world and they're postpaid in the B2B world. Usually they're on account and then we bill them 20th a month after or whatever, 30, 60, 90 days credit, whatever it is. That's the first thing. Secondly, most retail e-commerce websites do not allow you to back order items. Most of them. Most retail e-commerce websites, if they don't have it, you can't buy it. It's that simple. Whereas in the B2B world, it's
Mhm.
important that we allow customers to put items on back order with us so that we maintain that trust with them, that we will get those products to them in a reliable fashion. But then we also have
Mhm.
a scenario where in many B2B industries and verticals like yours, if we can't get an item, let's say it's back ordered, if we can't get an item to a customer in, say, 3, 4, 5 days, oftentimes they will want to cancel that back order because they've got a job to be done and they will find an alternate supplier if it takes longer than, say, 5 days. They've already completed the project, they've sourced the items elsewhere, and now they need to cancel the
Mhm.
order. So oftentimes what we see is we need to implement automated workflows that get a reapproval once an item comes back into stock before we actually ship. Because oftentimes in B2B, these shipments are large, they're heavy, they're expensive. And so we do not want people to have to return our orders, our shipments. And
Mhm.
so we need to revalidate, okay, it's been 10 days since you ordered this item. We now have it back in stock. Do you still need it? Because we don't want to ship this massive car part or a set of rotors, brake rotors. We don't want to ship that out and then have you ship it back because you don't need it anymore. So we have a
Mhm.
lot more complexity in order management, full stop in B2B, and so many more things to consider. Is that the type of scenario where that just oftentimes humans have to be in the loop? There's just no two ways around it.
Right now, yeah, especially with the way that our lack of data that we can get from some of our manufacturing partners causes us to have email, phone calls, especially like the recycled world. Like they're going out to a vehicle that's in their lot and taking the part out of that vehicle. We have expectations of how long it will take for them to do that before they ship it, but they aren't entering that back into a system. Like we're getting Excel files from them or we're calling them like, hey, has this shipped yet? So there's a lot of unfortunate need for that manual because of what we're seeing for lack of technology in the logistics side of the
Yeah.
house.
And are you seeing
Mhm.
AI impact your business yet, or are you wanting AI to impact your business? And where I'm seeing it start to make the most impact, product data, harmonization, standardization, all that sort of stuff. I'm seeing it already starting to have an impact in data enrichment workflows, PIM systems, etc. I'm also seeing it on the what I would call formerly communication only channels, i.e., email, Slack,
Mhm.
Teams, WhatsApp. We're seeing new systems coming online now that are a combination of multimodal and conversational AI that can, be almost like the human in the loop, but it's AI in the loop that can intercept things like emailed PDFs of a PO, where a sales rep used to have to, or customer service used to have to manually key that into an ERP or into a commerce system to get that order processed. We now have systems that can strip that out, map it into the commerce system as if the customer logged in and did it manually themselves. We're starting to see AI creep into many different vectors of the B2B world. And are you starting to see that have an impact on the business too, or at least the expectation of that?
So we have one of the coolest jobs at our company that's director of
Wow.
AI. We have a gentleman who's actually in that seat. He just over the past couple months hired 2
Wow.
employees. So the company has a huge focus on how can we use AI to better our data quality, better the results we're giving to customers. Let's make sure that we're giving them the right info. So complex wise, like transmissions, you could have your VIN that you input. There could be 2 different transmission tag IDs for that one VIN. There's specific things that would lead to you identifying that. And right now, there's no company, no system that can provide you data wise what that should be. There's manual ways that you can try to identify it. You can look on the transmission, stuff like that, but there's no real way to find it. So we have this whole team trying to figure out how can we make our search robust with AI. That I think is cooler than what we're doing on the support side. We have HubSpot. So HubSpot has AI built in. We've got our chat bot. It can help try to use our knowledge base to answer some questions. Like we have that whole aspect, which is cool. But I think what we're doing to try to help actually get the right results to the customers internally is way cooler than the part that we're doing to try to help limit some of the requests that come in. Because frankly, if we can service them the right results, we're not going to get those requests on the aftermath saying that something's wrong.
And I think we're real close. We're probably not 100% there yet, but we're probably within 6 months of those manual phone calls you said you had to make to some of the third-party part suppliers that maybe have to rip it out of a vehicle. Those follow-up
Yep.
phone calls, being able to make those automated
Yeah.
via AI chat, where they ring up, they say, "Look,
Mhm.
I'm calling about this case, I'm calling about this product, I'm calling about this shipment. Can you give me an update?" And I think we're not that far away where a lot of those phone calls are actually going to be able to be automated because we're just trying to solicit some information, interpret that information, then get it into an electronic system that we then can act on. So I think we're not
Mhm.
that far away. And I
Not at
feel
all.
like that is going to take a lot of we used to call that BPM, business process automation. That's what we used to call it, business process automation, or we RPA, robotic process automation. And I feel like AI is starting to take some of those legacy concepts of that stuff and now humanize it, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
make it feel more human in the way that we do those actions, whilst still using the underlying power of AI to automate it.
So I was in a conference in November, and one of my missions was talking to vendors that are looking into using AI to help with either taking orders online or questions on orders, things like that. As we build out our support team, we're going to build out like an incoming phone number, and we want to see if there's any way we can start to eliminate some of the work they're going to get. So there's already companies out there that are working on this that have it. I think your 6 month timeline is spot on. Actually, I'm hoping for it because I need it to happen so that I can incorporate it with what I've got going on. But I do think that's what we're going to see is some of those mundane, routine, easy to answer things that you can do on our website. We're going to try to see if you can do that on the phone. So when you've got something complex, you get a
Yeah.
person. Easy peasy, you got a person in the US that speaks English that can help you. But if it's something that the system can look up the info and just read it back to you, and you want to call instead of looking online, we can offer that to you too if we have this option. And AI is going to help open that.
Yeah, and I think what it does is it makes it actually scalable. Instead of just having to throw more
Mhm.
bodies at it, it actually makes it more scalable. It's interesting, even basic chatbots, even basic e-commerce chatbots, They have gotten, like, I used to just hate, absolutely loathe whenever I was dumped to a
Mhm.
chatbot experience. And I would always immediately ask, can I escalate? Can you please escalate this to a human? That was my default thing.
100%.
It's interesting because
Mhm.
literally just over the weekend, I had an experience with a chatbot that was probably the best commerce experience I've ever had with a chatbot, and that was with Mercado Libre down here in Mexico. And I had to return something because what was shipped was not actually the right, it was for my Jeep. And it takes a very special
Mhm.
Mopar coolant for my Jeep. You can't
Yep.
use regular, it takes a special oat coolant. You can't
Mhm.
use standard propylene glycol in the Jeep JL cooling system. And so I ordered what was supposed to be the right Mopar part number, but what they shipped was not what was in the image on Mercado Libre. They shipped something
Mm.
else, which is not compatible. It was still Mopar, but it was not compatible with my Jeep. So I went back. I went through the returns process in Spanish, of course, in the chatbot. Then they said, okay, we'll take this information. We'll liaise with the seller first. We'll find out what they propose as a solution, whether it's a rebate, a refund, whatever it is, or we're going to ship you the right thing, or a swap, whatever it is. Then they came back and they said, "Oh, this looks like it's actually what they say is no, this will work in your vehicle." And I said, and so I went back in very detailed explanation of why it will not work in my vehicle. Why, and I even pointed to the place where the Jeep themselves, they say you must use this part number in your vehicle, and I put all that information, I pasted it into the chat. And about, they said, okay, look, we're thinking through this. Like 15 seconds later, understand the return has been approved. This will show up in your My Account area in about 3 minutes. It will be available for you to download a QR code to be able to attach to your return. You'll be able to take it to a local convenience store that accepts Mercado Libre returns. They will scan your QR code and it will be able to be returned for free. And
Oh,
that was
that's nice.
100% driven by a chatbot. And
That's
so
nice.
that, now we're at a place where I think conversational and multimodal AI means that the dumb chatbots of even a year ago have been replaced by
Mhm.
some pretty amazing conversational experiences.
Yes. Yeah, there's still a lot of room for it to
Totally.
grow, but I'll be honest, when we were talking about opening up chat on site and we've got the AI bot, we're monitoring very
Hmm.
closely how it's behaving, what we're getting for interaction, how our customers reacting to it, because as soon as they start getting rubbed the wrong way, we'll
Yes.
lose them. So we gotta make sure that it's giving them the right experience, not the wrong one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think always having the option to escalate to a human, that
Yes.
causes people to maybe stick with a chat conversation a little bit longer than if they feel like there's no way out of that loop. It's like almost like a death spiral.
Mhm.
If I can't get out of this horrible chat loop, it definitely feels forced and it feels really uncomfortable. Whereas I'll
Mhm.
probably persist with an electronic chat. If I know the option to opt out of electronic chat is available to me, I'll probably persist with it a little bit more, a little bit longer than if I feel like this is my only option. Is that the sense
Mhm.
you get from your customers too?
Oh, yeah. They're still the customers that immediately do not want a chatbot. They just want a person. They don't even like sending in a chat. They wanna pick up the phone, call someone, get somebody on the phone, talk to them. Like, they're allergic to technology in
Sure.
some cases. We have them taking pictures with a phone, sending us that for a screenshot. So, we've gotta offer every option to get out and to get down the path that they need to. Because again, like, I know it's not unique to automotive, but it's a relationship based industry. If you upset a customer, they will make sure that everybody knows it. And you will start to lose your share in the market because you've upset too many customers. So you've got to make sure that you're doing your best to tailor to the way that they want to be communicated to, not to make sure that you're doing it the way that's most efficient for you. Because sometimes your customers need that phone call, they need to be able to get a person on the phone.
And I'm guessing that it sounds like your boss is a cool cat, and it sounds like he's very realistic about what can be achieved over what time frame in the
Mhm.
business. But I'm guessing that along with that, he is trying to help the business to set KPIs that aren't just based on, for example, percentage of orders that migrate from online to offline channels, or percentage of revenue that moves from offline channels to online channels. Because we know, based on Deloitte data from 2025, that the average across all B2B businesses for online penetration is around 9%. Even
Mhm.
the best businesses out there, they're oftentimes they can only migrate maybe 15% of revenue online in the first 12
Mhm.
months of going live with a really good system, that's an upper bound limit of expectation that's set there. But what I'm seeing in the market is the best B2Bs are not just measuring ecom performance or ecom portal performance by percentage of revenue orders that migrate online. They are saying, okay, what other actions in the business are we unloading from human beings? And how are we better servicing our customers in the way they want to be serviced outside of the pure transaction? So, like we discussed earlier, customers have
Mhm.
expectations. They can log in and self-service lots of things like invoices, not just place an order online. And so I think we have to expand the measures of success of our portal experiences. We have to expand the KPIs around that. Otherwise, we're selling ourselves short based on the investment we're making in digital. And it's harder to show ROI if the only thing we're measuring is how much revenue as a percentage comes through our portal. That, to me, feels like we are massively underselling the value of our digital experiences if that's the only thing we measure it by. What's your take?
Mhm. I agree. So, thinking of our industry, we have inside lots of
Mhm.
competition. You in any town can have 6 different parts distributors that you can go to on one street. So, we have to make sure that what we're offering is a better experience. So, a lot of the automotive side of the house, like returns, warranties, is not handled very well electronically. So, that's a lot of our focus is how can we look into bringing that onto more of a self-service platform, make that easier, take that friction away because we have staff right now that have to handle it, but you've got to have your staff continue to grow to be able to handle those things. And the entire return warranty, that's always a point of friction because somebody's unhappy when something like that has to happen. So, thinking of ways to better get the customer to keep coming back, even if they're not placing all their orders online, are we getting more business from them? Some of their orders may have to come on the phone, but is their business with us increasing? Are we getting more of the share of wallet of what they're ordering? Are they coming to us for some of the different parts? We are normally only transmission. Now we're opening up general repair. Are they going to come start ordering some of their other parts from us? Can we start winning some other business from them by giving them tools that no one else is offering? So there's a lot more to the e-commerce side that even if we know they got to pick up a phone or if we have any other innovative way we come up with for how to order a part, we want to make sure that they come to our platform for everything they need to do with our business. That way they keep coming back.
You make such a good point, which is that unfortunately, sometimes in distribution, it's only when competitive pressure becomes intense that we change, right? And it would be nice if
Mhm.
it wasn't that way, but that's just we as how we as humans work sometimes. It's okay, I'll invest when I've got a competitive threat that makes it untenable for me not to make a change. It's like sitting on a thorn, but the thorn's got to be painful enough that you want to move. And I
Mhm.
was dealing with a manufacturer and distributor of heavy duty vehicle truck parts down in New Zealand many years ago, and they were a multi-billion dollar company. I think they were based out of Singapore.
Mhm.
And I've talked about this on the pod before. And they didn't do e-commerce for their distributors or their B2B buyers of their parts. For example, fleet management and maintenance companies.
Mhm.
They didn't do any e-commerce across any of their business anywhere in the world, except for they did a pilot program in New Zealand after a pure play online competitor came into the market in New Zealand. And where
Yep.
they had field reps that would go out and meet with fleet managers and take all the details in their iPad of all the vehicles in their fleet, then upload it to the system in the back end in their CRM so that when the customer called in, they would know what
Mhm.
fit their vehicle. This online competitor allowed them to keep their fleet data in the website. And so
Mhm.
they would be able to go in to this website. They would be able to select a specific vehicle or a heavy trailer or a whatever it is, a hydraulic system, whatever it is, from their garage. They would then basically be able to navigate the website with a permanent filter applied for all of the components on the website that fit that vehicle in their fleet. Now, that is pretty innovative. It's pretty amazing. And these guys said, okay, now we have to move. Now we have to change. Now, yeah, we give great in-person service with a fleet manager, for example, but these guys are automating it. And these guys,
Mhm.
we don't have to go see them and they don't have to make time to meet with us. Like they can log in anytime they want, 24 hours a day, and manage their fleet buying requirements all online.
Mhm.
Now, that was pretty transformative, and that was a competitive threat that this other bigger player was like, okay, now we have to change. Now we have to do e-commerce. Now we have to offer a service like this because anybody that gets wind of this other service, they transition to that because it's just so damn convenient. And we'd like to feel that doesn't have to happen to us for us to create a great, amazing, innovative customer experience. But sometimes that's just how it is in B2B, isn't it?
Yeah, you either need the disruptor to come or you need to become that disruptor. It takes somebody to come out with what the customers need and actually listen to them for others to start noticing. That's exactly how we did over at Parts Tech when we got it to grow. We came out with a product that no one in the industry had. We went straight to the customers. We built it the way that they needed it, and the customers helped the product grow and made it what it was. It's you got to be the disruptor, or you've got to pay attention when they come, and you got to move because if you're not going after what your customers need to keep their business growing, you're going to lose them. If you require your customer to get on the phone, you got about 15 seconds before you've impacted their
Yes.
business and they're losing money. You can't keep them on the phone. You have to help them automate their day to make it so that they're spending less time away from what their customers need. That's the world of B2B is how can I help you service your customers better?
And when do you think that agentic commerce is really going to start impacting B2B? Because I see it around the edges, around the periphery. It hasn't wholesale impacted B2B yet. But where we see the Jaggers, the Coupas, the Aribas of the world on the punch out procurement side of the house, they're already talking about we want to create agentic procurement solutions where there doesn't need to be a human in the loop anymore, or minimal humans in the loop. Like, for example, if I'm a builder and I have a blueprint for a house or a building or whatever it is, they want to ultimately create a world where you can upload the blueprint into their e-procurement system. You can send that off to a
Mhm.
building materials supplier agentically via, say, for example, MCP. The agent on the seller side will receive those blueprints. They'll scan the blueprints. They'll understand all the building materials that are required to meet that implementation. They'll then come back, say, okay, we've got this stuff in stock. We would have to order this product in. Here's your price. Here's your quote. All automated end to end. Whereas today, it would take a human breaking out the items from the blueprint, creating a PO from that, sending that off to the
Mhm.
building supplier account rep, sending them that PO saying, what can you get to us? What's our price? Give us a quote. So there's a whole lot of double and triple handling in that transaction that the e-procurement providers are trying to take out, because the reality is in B2B, like net margins oftentimes 3-4%. And so the reality is there's not a lot of margin to play with. And so in B2B, if we can
Mhm.
take any human cost, meaning time, out of the equation, that can be a big impact, right? But it's all fine and good for the procurement side to create agentic experiences. But if the supply side doesn't provide some sort of an interface for those agents to communicate with, then you can't automate the end-to-end process. Do you guys think about that? Is that something that is coming up in discussion yet? Or is this something that feels too far on the distant horizon to even be thinking about, and you've got other low-hanging fruit that you need to deal with first?
So everything we do is thinking about how can we automate and take some of the human process out. But with a lot of the manufacturers, the partners that we work with, not having the ability to provide us anything API wise or at all through some form of technology, we're at a standstill in some areas. So I think the industry itself is probably light years away from a full agentic process for ordering. But I do think that there's a lot of areas where we can streamline and we can take some of that mundane routine out and we can make it so that we're getting our employees their time is being spent better because we're using what we can for the AI tools to get some of those processes off their plate, so to speak. But I don't think the industry wise, it's going to take a while before we're in the phase where most of the technicians that you see are entering retirement ages.
Yeah.
We haven't switched. Like we still have technicians that are coming in. It's tough to get new technicians because it's a backbreaking job. It doesn't pay a lot of money. You have to like cars or you're not going to end up in this industry or you've got to have no other option. That's the only reason you end up is you fall into it. It's like a labor of love that I think we will see more advancement when we see this transition. When we start to see younger individuals come in that were raised on iPads. No offense to raising a child on an iPad, but they're going to be more willing to take on technology and learn it than somebody that doesn't want a cell phone. So I think we've got a lot that can happen in the future when we start to see some of that change of mindset come into play too.
It's crazy that you say exactly that. And I'm going to give you an example from my real life just recently. Again, my Jeep, it has TPMS sensors for the tire pressure monitoring system.
Yep.
and it requires a specific OE type sensor that works at the correct frequency for that RF system in the Jeep. Plus, it needs to be programmed, and the code, the ID of the TPMS sensor has to be loaded via ODB into the Jeep so that they can sync and they can talk to each other so that it doesn't create
Yep.
the alert on the dash. And they only last, because they got a lithium
Hmm.
battery in them, the sensors only last about 5 years. And so even if you have a
Yeah.
great OE sensor, you're going to have to replace them about every 5 years. When I bought this, it had
Hmm.
just had, by the dealer, it just had new aftermarket wheels and tires put on it, but no TPMS sensors put in it. And so the alert was on the dash, and I started doing my homework. And there's 500, no joke, there's 500 tire shops in Puebla City where I live. Almost none. Finding a shop that knows what a TPMS sensor is, knows how to fit them, knows how to program them, and has the programming tool to do it. Like, for example, Autel is a big player in this space. It was
Yep.
cheaper for me to buy the TPMS sensors and the programming tool off of Amazon for Autel. It was cheaper for me to buy that and just have the tire shop purely take off the tire, put the sensor on the rim, and then put the tire back on again and balance it. It was cheaper for me to do that than to find like the one or two places in all of Puebla that has a TPMS programmer. It was cheaper for me to own that so that I can do that for myself from now on than it was to find one of the only places in Puebla that does that, because a lot of these tire places, they're old school. They don't deal with TPMS. They don't have the programming equipment.
Hmm.
They don't want to deal with that. So you're right. I think that there's this transition in automotive that's probably going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, where the older generation ages out. We got a problem on our hands, because if the younger generation doesn't come in, we're going to be short tens of thousands of mechanics in our industry if that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, it's going to cripple the industry. So that's biggest concern that I have for this industry is if there's not some type of change to education and something done to try to engage people to come into the industry, especially technicians, what's going to happen? 5, 10 years, we're going to have a lack of options. There's going to be less shops that you can go to. And I know, like, I'll do a little plug for the right to repair. Granted, manufacturers, dealers are trying to fight for the ability to keep all that
Yes.
data and to shut down the automotive aftermarket. But if you do, you're going to flood those dealerships. They can't handle that
Yes.
work. They legitimately need the aftermarket to stay afloat in order for all the vehicles on the road to be covered. People are keeping them longer now. So you can't have a dealership that's servicing a 13-year-old for a job that costs $200 when they're trying to get a new $50,000 truck off the
Yes.
lot. They can't bother their time on that. So I really hope that there's more focus brought in the industry to get that education side going so that we can try to engage younger individuals to come in, because otherwise I don't mind working on my own car, but not everybody
That's
does.
right. That's right. And I tell you, it's so interesting because I think it was Jim Farley or somebody senior at Ford just recently announced that they have 5,000 tech opportunities open right now, where they pay 120 grand a year for technicians in their Ford dealerships. They have 5,000 openings right now for techs that they cannot fill, even at 120 grand a year. So the reality is are we headed towards a world where an auto tech, a certified auto tech, is making $200,000-300,000 a year to entice them into the industry? Is that where
Yep.
realistically where we're headed? Maybe.
I think part of the problem too is the non-traditional schooling processes that they have to go through, and the way that there's no real connection from schooling to becoming like an apprentice and actually learning how to do the job. Some dealerships will try to poach students so that they can get you in, you can learn how to just work on their vehicles and that's it. But I think unfortunately, because they're doing more of that turn and burn, they end up burning out technicians really quickly. Whereas if you get more engagement from like your mom and pops, they're going to take you in, they're going to teach you every vehicle they can. Hope that maybe one day you want to take the shop over from them, because who knows, maybe they don't have kids to do it or their kids don't like automotive. So there's I think there's a difference in the two, and I'm hoping that the aftermarket side starts to creep in a little bit more to start helping out with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What is, if you were to look out over the next 6, 12, 18 months from a digital enablement perspective, from a service enablement perspective, like what have you outlined from a priority perspective? Like what do you maybe don't do today that your customers are asking for, or you've just recognized, hey, we'd like to do this thing, we don't do it yet, but give us 6, 12, 18 months and we will be doing that thing. What is like Where's your North Star over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Me personally, from my side of the house and what I'm seeing in the industry, I'm trying to work on us making sure that we have self-service like information available. So, thinking of the tech changeover, we need to be able to give them tools. If they're on our website, I want them to go to our knowledge base. And if they have a question about this transmission, I want us to have a link to someone in the education side of the industry that can help get them that information or show them those videos. Because think about the way that people learn. YouTube teaches a lot of people how to
Mm-hmm.
do things. We need to be able to take that side of it on. So that way, if we've got a technician on our site that's a newbie, they're a little green, maybe they're looking for a part they don't know. We've got to be able to show them like a diagram of the part that it's looking at. Here, look at this image. Is this the part? Here's what you need to order. Okay, do you need to know how to install that? You may not have had someone teach you. Here's a trained technician that's from this school that can show you on this video how to do it. So I am trying to push for that, and I think my boss gets annoyed with how much, like, I had him following me around at a conference trying to ask people about technology education and how we were going to incorporate that into our site. So he knows I'm preaching on it. But I do think that's an area that I want to see us fill, that I think will help us stand out as the change of technicians happens.
Wow, almost an LMS type of a scenario inside the commerce experience. I love that. I love that idea.
Take a minute.
I love it. We do need it. Now, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing, if you could sprinkle fairy dust on it and you could say, okay, cool. In the B2B e-commerce world, if we did this, generally speaking, this would make our world so much better. What would that one thing be?
Educate. Like, even people that are scared of technology, like I have neighbors who are older and they're like, can you help us with our tech? I'd be glad to. If you're willing to learn, I am glad to take my time to help teach you, because it's going to help your life. So I think just education all around is something that if I could sprinkle fairy dust and say poof, so that way I could call up a customer and they know how to use a
Yeah.
computer.
Oh man, yeah, I feel you there. We've
That's
got a townhouse in a townhouse complex, and a number of our neighbors are older, and even on Spanish speaking websites and whatever, I'll always try to help as much as I can, even though I'm not fluent in Spanish yet. I'll always try to help them. And the digital services in Mexico, it's interesting because the government you would think that they're improving digital services in Mexico, but actually it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy that the digital services are bad. So when people log in to use them, they're bad. So people don't even
Mhm.
bother anymore trying to use digital government services. And that allows the government to say, hey, we don't have any demand. So
We don't have
therefore,
to.
why should we invest in digital government services when nobody's going to use it? It's a massive
Mhm.
investment for nothing. No, actually, the reason why there's no demand is because everybody doesn't. Everybody knows it's going to be an exercise in futility to try to use government services online. So they go to their local government office to get things done, and they'll wait in line for 5 hours to
Mhm.
do it. And so I think that concept translates to B2B e-commerce, and that's the risk, meaning that if they come to our website and our experience is crap, but then 6 months later we invest $500,000 in our digital services, well, it's a once bitten, twice shy scenario, right? It takes
Mhm.
5 times the effort, not double the effort, but like 5 times the effort to get a
Yep.
customer to come back and try again with your digital experience. So I think that's the risk, right? The risk is you have a crappy
Mhm.
digital experience. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Customers try to use it. It's crappy. So they go, no, I'll just continue to go through my agent or my rep or customer service or whatever it is. And then you make a subsequent massive investment in digital. And then you have to go through an even bigger adoption program and adoption process to get people to try this shiny new thing. And so I think that's why I always try to encourage my customers, look, if you can't build something that's good, like that has this minimum standard of good, then in comparison to say peers in your industry, that it can't be at least good, at least at the level of kind of the average of the industry, then just don't do it at all. Because the reality is you'll probably
Mhm.
put more customers off using a latter solution than if you just waited an extra 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, invested a little bit more, made it of a higher standard, then the first experience they have is a good one, and then it encourages all your other customers to try to do the same thing. So is that kind of
Mhm.
where you land on that as well?
Oh yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's 5 times harder to regain a customer's trust than it is to gain it the first time. That's what, like, we have to focus on churned customers, ones that we've lost. And it's okay, how can we convince you to come back? We did wrong. Have we fixed that problem? Have we fixed the experience for you so that you are willing to trust us? And Have you gone so far down a path of partnering with somebody else that we can't win you back? There's always that potential as well. Yep. You got to make sure that you're not steering them off on their first experience with you, or else you may not get them back.
Wow, so true, so true. And as we come down to the end of our time together, it's been a really great conversation, and you've just been so open and honest about where we're at and where the whole industry is at, more broadly speaking. Now we're at the point where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me
Mhm.
one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. So, Amy Steele from NexaMotion Group, what is your question for me today?
With your knowledge on B2B, what is your biggest fear for this upcoming year for the B2B e-commerce sector?
My biggest fear is that, and I'm already starting to get questions like this from certain manufacturers and distributors. My biggest fear is that the coming of AI and agentic commerce will cause more B2Bs, manufacturers and distributors, to put off implementing anything commerce related at all because they're going, oh, AI is going to solve that for us. So let's just not do anything. I've actually had that question. Hey, do we need to do e-commerce? Like, we don't do e-commerce today. Okay, maybe we do EDI, maybe we do Punch App. We don't have any kind of self-service e-commerce portal. Do we even need to do e-commerce? Isn't agentic going to fix all that for us? Isn't that what's coming? So do we even need to do e-commerce? And it's, first of all, you're going to need commerce foundations anyway, even in the world of agentic commerce. You're going to need those foundations. You really probably need to crawl, walk, run organizationally anyway. You need to exercise the
Mhm.
digital muscle. You need to build up some digital capabilities. You need to have digital assets behind the scenes that can be fed into these agents. You can't just slap an agent on your ERP and expect it all to work out great. It's not going to work that way. It's just like slapping ecom with no intermediate layer between your ERP and e-commerce, right? If you just take the raw data out of your
Mhm.
ERP system, now some ERPs are pretty complete in terms of product data, but most aren't. And most ERPs were never designed to be a PIM system, for example, and they were never designed to be an e-commerce system. And as a result of that, your structured
Mhm.
and unstructured data is a disaster. And so you don't want to be presenting that to your customers today through a digital channel, which is going to put them off because it's not great. And you've got sales reps today that are acting as that translation layer between the crappy data in your ERP and the customer. Like, your sales reps are
Mhm.
fixing all that on the way to your customer, and they're pulling data from a network drive and emailing it to them or whatever it is. So agentic, if you have zero digital chops in your business today, agentic is not going to work for you. And so that is my fear. My fear is, just like B2Bs, most B2Bs missed the mobile revolution, they are in danger of missing the e-com revolution because they're chasing the next shiny thing, which is this whole agentic thing. And they won't have built up the capability. They won't have the data. They won't have the customer data structured well. They won't have the product data structured well. They will just not be ready to capitalize on that because they're in a holding pattern, and they're acting like a deer in the headlights. And they're saying, why would we invest 100, 200, 300, 500K on e-com, on a portal, when agentic commerce is coming? And so that's probably my biggest fear, is the deer in the headlights factor of agentic.
I can understand that. I'm interested to see how many, like, vibe coded systems
Yes.
come out over the
Yes.
next couple of years. I feel like they're gonna fail horribly, but we're gonna see a
Yep.
bunch of
Yep.
them.
This is already starting to happen inside manufacturers, distributors that need little pieces of gap filler software to do very specific functions
Mhm.
in the business. And they don't want to go and buy a vertical SaaS solution that's going to cost them, 10 grand a month to do this one tiny little function. They're building those things. But where vibe
Mhm.
coding is amazingly useful, I think, is to create a POC and to then be able to hand that POC over to your professional, either internal developers or a third party ecom dev house or software dev house, that
Mhm.
you go, this is what we need, this is what we want, we've got it to a v.1 POC. Now we need you to take this, we need you to professionalize this, we need to put version control in place, we need to put security in place, scalability, all that stuff. We want you to do that, but at least you can see, like, I'm a big fan of show don't tell. And what I think vibe coding
Mhm.
does is it allows us to show more instead of telling more. And that is one of the pluses of vibe coding.
Yeah, I think that's gonna help out a
I love
lot.
it. I love it. Listen, this has been a really cool conversation. You're an open book, and I super, super appreciate that. I wish you every continuing success. You're relatively new to the business.
Thanks.
You're not brand new. You haven't
Yep.
been there 10 years yet. I wish you every continuing success with the business, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, same.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.